there's a man who's been in the news, Peter Mandelson, who the Prime Minister Keir Starmer could resign because of Peter Mandelson in the next few weeks. Peter Mandelson was a very, very skillful politician, and he was very, very difficult, notoriously difficult to interview because he's so slippery and skillful. And the reason he might be bringing down the Prime Minister is he went and became the ambassador in America with Donald Trump, and he was in the White House, and then he was connected to Jeffrey Epstein, and everything, all the House of Cards collapsed. So when I was interviewing Peter Mandelson, he had a book that was being released. He'd written his memoirs. And I watched him being interviewed by other people on his trail to sell the book. And what he did in all of the interviews was berated or tripped up anyone who hadn't read the book. And he would test them. So the first thing I did was read the book. I thought, you've got to read it. It was a big book, and I read it. But I also knew he was so strong on politics, and he was being interviewed by these really punchy, hard-nosed British journalists, and none of them laid a glove on him. So I thought, I'm not going to beat him in that area. So I thought, what can I do? That's interesting. Now, this was a guy who seemed to be, he was always called the Prince of Darkness, and he had this sort of image of being quite a dark character. So I looked at the book, and I got Post-it notes, and I put it in the book every time Mandelson cried or was against type, against what we expected. I think his dog died at one point. And it was just stuff like that. So I thought, just ask him about these times in his life. Nobody else asks him about these times. So I went down that route. I didn't make it sound like I'm just going to ask you about times you've cried, but I tried to skillfully navigate through those areas. And certainly on audio or podcasts or radio, the loudest sound is silence. And I got silence from Peter Mandelson. And that was a result. That was a result. That was enough for my management to say, wow, you did something other interviewers haven't done. And I think if you can achieve something a little bit original, something that's a little bit different, something that's a little bit unexpected, it's worth aiming for. Now, I did it recently and failed. So I tried, as a friend of mine, I was interviewing a friend of mine for a business dinner, and he's got quite an interesting background, but he never talks about it. So I thought I'll try and prize this out of him because I think there's some gold there, and I really think I can work something out of that. And I tried everything to get to that. And every time I tried, the shutters came up, and he didn't want to delve into that. He just didn't think that was important. And that was a disappointment for me. No one in the room was disappointed. No one in the room knew what I wanted to happen with that interview. But I think every time you go to bat as an interviewer, there is gold dust out there, but you don't always get to the gold. Every single podcast interview you do, every single radio interview or journalist interview will not give you that magic moment. But I think if you aim for it, you've A, got a chance of success, and B, you'll probably leave a pretty good interview trying to achieve that.